For 8 long years, the boy kept touching his ear. Every single doctor said the same words, "Nothing we can do." His father spent millions of dollars. He flew to different states and countries. He begged the best specialists to look one more time. They all said no. Then a maid saw something that nobody else noticed. What she found inside that child's ear will shock you. Marcus Wellington was a very rich man. He owned private jets and big houses. He had more money than most people could count. But his son, Ethan, was born deaf. The boy was 8 years old and had never heard any sound. Marcus tried everything to help him. He took Ethan to Mayo Clinic in Rochester, Minnesota. They went to the best hospitals in California and Texas. They visited specialists in New York who charged thousands of dollars every hour. The doctors ran many tests and scans. They did procedures that hurt. All of them said the same thing: "This cannot be fixed. You must accept it." But Marcus could not accept it. Ethan was all he had left in this world. His wife died the day Ethan was born. She had complications during childbirth. There was too much bleeding and not enough time to save her. Marcus held her hand as she took her last breath. She tried to say something, but no words came out, just like their son who would never speak. Marcus never forgave himself. He thought if he had picked a different hospital, maybe his wife would still be alive. Maybe Ethan would be different. The guilt sat heavy on his heart like a rock he could not move. So Marcus did the only thing he knew. He spent money, millions and millions of dollars. He paid for the best specialists on earth. He bought plane tickets across the ocean. He stayed in hotels that cost more for one night than most people earned in a whole month. Every doctor told him, "Your son's deafness is permanent. There is nothing we can do. You need to accept this." Accept it? How could he accept that his boy would live in silence forever? How could he accept that Ethan would never hear his father say, "I'm sorry, your mother is not here"? So Marcus kept searching. He kept writing checks. He kept hoping that somewhere, someone had the answer. He did not know the answer was not coming from a specialist. It was coming from someone he would never think to notice. Someone who was about to walk through his front door with nothing but faith and bills she could not pay. Hey everyone, thanks for stopping by. Comment where you're watching from. Someone near you might be watching too. Hit like, share, subscribe, and tap the bell so you never miss a story. Watch till the very end. The final twist will blow your mind. Let's jump right in. Her name was Grace Martinez, and she was about to change everything. Grace Martinez arrived on a Tuesday morning in October. The sky was dark gray. Everything felt heavy. She stood at the gate of the Wellington estate in Connecticut, holding her bag with both hands. She was trying to breathe slowly. This was her last chance. Back in Newark, New Jersey, her grandmother was lying in a nursing home bed. The bills were piling up on Grace's kitchen table like a mountain that kept growing. She was 3 months behind on payments. The letter said if she did not pay soon, they would move her grandmother to a state facility. Those places were where people were forgotten, where nobody held your hand, where you became just a number, not a person. Grace could not let that happen. Her grandmother raised her after Grace's parents died in a car accident when she was 11 years old. That woman fed her when there was no food. She prayed over her when life felt impossible. Her grandmother deserved better than a cold room with strangers who did not care. So Grace took this job as a maid at a billionaire's mansion. She did not care about the fancy address. She did not care about the rich family. She just needed the paycheck. The head housekeeper, Mrs. Henderson, met her at the door. She had a stern face and sharp eyes. She was the kind of woman who noticed everything and forgave nothing. "You're Grace Martinez." "Yes, ma'am." "You will clean, you will stay quiet, you will keep to yourself. Mr. Wellington does not like disruptions, especially around his son." Grace nodded. "I understand." "Do you?" The last girl did not understand. She tried to be too friendly with the boy. She thought she could help him. She was gone in 1 week. Grace swallowed hard. "I'm just here to work, ma'am." Mrs. Henderson looked at her for a long moment, then she nodded. "Good, follow me." As they walked through the mansion, Grace kept her eyes down, but she could not help noticing things. The silence was so thick it felt alive. The other servants moved without speaking, without smiling. There was a heaviness in the air like fog that would not go away. And then she saw him. A small boy was sitting on the marble staircase. He was arranging toy cars in a perfect line. He did not look up. He did not notice anyone. His shoulders were bent forward. His movements were careful and exact. But Grace noticed something else. The way he kept touching his right ear, just for a moment, like a habit, and the small wince on his face each time he did it. Grace's chest felt tight. She had seen that look before. She did not say anything. She just kept walking, but her heart whispered something she could not ignore: pay attention. Days went by. Grace cleaned floors and wiped windows. She folded linens and dusted furniture. She kept her head down like Mrs. Henderson told her, but she could not stop watching Ethan. Every morning was the same routine. The boy would sit alone in the sunroom. He was surrounded by model airplanes and puzzle pieces. His world was small and safe. Nobody bothered him there. The other servants avoided him, not because they were cruel, but because they were afraid. Like his silence was something they might catch if they got too close. Some whispered that the boy was cursed. They said losing his mother at birth had taken his hearing with her. It was just superstition, but Grace saw something different. She saw a child who was very lonely, a boy who sat by windows and pressed his small hand against the glass. He watched the world move without him. She saw the way he would look at his father sometimes when Marcus walked past without stopping, and how his little shoulders would drop just a bit lower. She saw how he touched his ear over and over, wincing each time, and nobody noticed, or maybe they had stopped noticing long ago. One afternoon, Grace was dusting the hallway near the sunroom. She saw Ethan struggling with a model airplane wing. His small fingers could not get the piece to fit. Frustration showed on his face. She should not interfere. Mrs. Henderson's warning echoed in her mind. But before she could stop herself, Grace knelt down. She gently took the wing and fitted it into place. It made a soft click. Ethan looked up at her. For a moment, they just stared at each other. Then something happened. The tiniest smile appeared at the corner of his mouth. Grace's heart broke wide open. She smiled back and gave him a small wave. He waved in return. That night, Grace lay in her bed thinking about that wave. Such a small thing, but it meant everything. The next morning, she left something on the stairs where Ethan always sat. A folded paper bird, simple, made from scrap paper she found in the kitchen. She did not wait to see if he would take it. But the next day, the bird was gone. In its place was a note with 2 words in shaky handwriting: "Thank you." Grace pressed that note to her chest and closed her eyes. She whispered into the quiet, "Lord, let me help this child. Show me how." She did not know it yet, but God was already answering, and the answer would cost her everything she had. A secret friendship. Over the next few weeks, something changed. Grace and Ethan developed their own language: small things, secret things. She would leave him candy wrapped in gold foil. He would leave her drawings of airplanes. She learned his signs, not the formal ones his tutors taught, but the personal ones he made up himself. When he tapped his chest twice, it meant he was happy. When he pointed to the sky, it meant he was thinking about stars. When he pressed both palms together, it meant he felt safe. And slowly, he started using that last sign around her: safe. Grace treasured that more than anything. But not everyone was pleased. One evening, Mrs. Henderson cornered her in the kitchen. "I've seen you with the boy." Grace's stomach dropped. "Ma'am, I don't." Mrs. Henderson's voice was sharp as glass. "I warned you, Mr. Wellington has rules. Staff does not get close to Ethan. I'm not trying to cause trouble, he's just lonely." "That is not your concern." Mrs. Henderson stepped closer. "You are here to clean, not to mother that child, not to fix what cannot be fixed." Grace bit her tongue. Fix what cannot be fixed. That is what everyone said. Even here, even in this house where the boy lived, they had all given up. "If Mr. Wellington finds out you have been interfering, you will be gone. No references, no second chances. Mrs. Henderson's eyes were cold. Think about that. She walked away, her heels clicking against the floor like a countdown. That night, Grace sat on her bed, staring at the wall. She thought about her grandmother, the bills, the paycheck she desperately needed. She thought about Ethan, his lonely eyes, his pain. She thought about the dark thing she had seen in his ear. Mrs. Henderson's words echoed in her mind. Fix what cannot be fixed. But what if it could be fixed? What if everyone was wrong? Grace picked up her Bible and held it close. Lord, I don't know what to do. I can't lose this job, but I can't ignore what I'm seeing. She waited in the silence. No answer came, just the weight of a decision she was not ready to make. Outside her window, the moon hung low and heavy. Inside her heart, a war was starting, between what she needed to survive and what she knew was right. She did not know it yet, but that war was about to end, because the next morning, everything would change. The next morning came cold and quiet. Grace was sweeping the hallway when she heard it, a soft thud, then nothing. She stopped and listened. Another sound, like a muffled cry. Her heart jumped. She followed the sound to the garden door. And there was Ethan, sitting on the stone bench. His small body was hunched over, both hands were pressed tight against his right ear, his face was twisted, tears were streaming down his cheeks, but no sound came from his mouth. He was crying in complete silence. Grace dropped the broom and ran to him. She knelt in front of him, her hands were shaking. Ethan, Ethan, look at me. He opened his eyes. They were red and wet and full of pain. She gently signed, your ear. He nodded, more tears fell. Grace's chest felt like it was being crushed. Can I look? She signed carefully. I'll be gentle, I promise. He hesitated, fear crossed his face, but then he leaned forward. Trust. This child, who had been poked and prodded by doctors his whole life, trusted her. Grace swallowed hard. She tilted his head gently toward the morning light and looked. There it was, deep inside his ear canal, something dark and dense, glistening like wet stone. Her breath stopped. It was bigger than before, clearer. How had every doctor missed this? How had every scan overlooked it? Grace's mind raced back to her cousin Tyler in Florida. He had a blockage that kept him deaf for 6 years. One simple procedure changed his life completely. Her hands trembled. Ethan, she signed slowly, there's something in your ear, something that should not be there. His eyes went wide. We need to tell your father, she signed. Panic exploded across his face. His hands moved fast and frantic. No doctors, please, they hurt me, always hurt, never help. Grace's heart shattered into 1,000 pieces. She understood. 8 years of specialists, 8 years of procedures, 8 years of pain with no relief. He had learned that help meant suffering. She took his small hands in hers and looked into his eyes. I would never hurt you, she whispered, never. He stared at her. Slowly his breathing calmed, but the fear did not leave his eyes. Grace sat with him until the tears dried, until his hands stopped shaking. Then she walked back inside, her mind spinning. She knew what she had seen, she knew what it meant. But what could she do? Tell Marcus, he would call more specialists, the same ones who had missed it for years. Do nothing, watch this child suffer in silence. That night Grace did not sleep. She lay awake, staring at the ceiling. Her grandmother's voice echoed in her head. God doesn't always send help in fancy packages, baby girl. Sometimes he sends it through folks with nothing but willing hands. Grace closed her eyes. Her hands were willing. But was she brave enough to use them? 3 days passed. Grace could not eat, could not sleep, could barely think. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw it, that dark mass lodged deep, blocking everything, and Ethan's face, the pain, the silent tears. On the 3rd night, she sat on the edge of her bed. Her Bible was open in her lap, but the words blurred. All she could see was Tyler, her cousin, deaf for 6 years, written off by every doctor. until someone finally looked. One procedure, one moment of attention, and his world exploded into sound. Grace's hands would not stop shaking. She knew what she had seen in Ethan's ear. She knew. But who was she? A maid, no degree, no training, no right to touch that boy. If she was wrong, if she hurt him, she would go to prison. If she was right, but Marcus found out she had acted without permission, she would lose everything, her job, her income, her grandmother's care. "Lord," she whispered, her voice cracking, "what do you want from me?" Silence, just the ticking of the clock. She thought about her brother Michael. He died at 14. He had been sick for months, complaining of pain, but they could not afford doctors, could not afford help. Grace watched him fade, watched him struggle to breathe, watched him try to speak words that would not come. He died in her arms, silent, just like Ethan's world. She had promised herself that day, promised God, never again. She would never stand by while a child suffered. But this was different. This was not her brother. This was a billionaire's son, and she was nobody. Grace closed the Bible and stood up. She walked to the window. The moon hung heavy outside, spilling silver light across the gardens. Somewhere in this mansion, a little boy was sleeping with pain in his ear and silence in his world, and she was the only one who had noticed, the only one who had seen. "God," she breathed, "I'm scared, I'm so scared. But if this is what you're asking..." Her voice trailed off. She thought of her grandmother's words, "The Lord doesn't call the equipped child, He equips the called." Grace wiped her eyes and made a decision. Tomorrow, if Ethan showed pain again, she would act. She would trust what God had shown her, even if it cost her everything. She climbed into bed, her heart pounding. Sleep would not come, but peace did. A strange, heavy peace, the kind that comes when you have decided to step off the cliff and trust that God will catch you. Tomorrow was coming, and with it, the moment that would change everything. The next evening came too quickly. Marcus was away on business in California. The house was quiet. Grace was folding linens in the hallway when she heard it. A thump. Her heart stopped. She ran toward the sound. Ethan lay on the hallway floor, curled up. Both hands were pressed to his ear. His face was twisted in agony. Tears streamed down his cheeks. Silent tears. Grace dropped to her knees beside him. "I'm here, baby, I'm here." She cradled his head gently, tilting it toward the lamplight. The dark mass was clearly visible now, swollen, pressing against his ear canal. Her hands trembled. This was it, the moment. She reached into her pocket and pulled out the sterilized tweezers she had taken from the first aid kit 3 days ago, just in case. Her breath came in short bursts. "Lord," she whispered, "guide my hands, please." Ethan looked up at her, eyes wide, scared but trusting. "I won't hurt you," she signed with one hand. "I promise." He nodded slowly. Grace steadied herself, took a breath, and gently, carefully moved the tweezers into his ear canal. Her hand shook. She could feel it, the dark mass, dense and sticky. She hooked it gently, pulled. Resistance. Her heart hammered. She pulled again, slow, careful. And then, release. Something slid free. It landed in her palm, dark, wet, biological, years of buildup that had stolen his hearing. Grace stared at it, her stomach turned. But before she could react, Ethan gasped, a real gasp, audible, loud. His hand flew to his ear. His eyes went wide, wider than she had ever seen them. He sat up suddenly, looking around the hallway like he had never seen it before. Then he pointed at the grandfather clock on the wall, the one that had been ticking his whole life, the one he had never heard. His mouth opened, a sound came out, rough, broken, unpracticed, but real. "Tick," he whispered. Grace's tears fell. "Yes, baby, that's the clock. You can hear it." Ethan's whole body trembled. He touched his throat, felt the vibration of his own voice. His eyes filled with wonder and fear and something else. "Hope." His mouth opened again, one word, the first real word he had ever spoken. Dad. Grace sobbed. She pulled him close, holding him as he shook, as sounds flooded his world for the first time in 8 years. You can hear, she whispered into his hair. Thank you, Jesus, you can hear. Ethan clung to her. And then footsteps, heavy, fast, coming down the hallway. Grace looked up. Marcus Wellington stood in the doorway. His face was white as death. His eyes were locked on his son on the floor, and the blood on Grace's hands. What have you done? Marcus's voice shook the walls. He rushed forward, pushing Grace aside. He grabbed Ethan by the shoulders. What did she do to you? Ethan flinched at the sound, so loud, so sharp. But then his mouth opened. Dad, I can hear you. Marcus froze. His entire body went rigid. What? Ethan reached up and touched his father's face. Your voice, he whispered, is that your voice? Marcus's legs buckled. But before the moment could breathe, before he could understand what was happening, his eyes landed on Grace's hands. The blood, the tweezers, the dark mass sitting in her palm. Terror overtook wonder. Security, he bellowed, now. 2 guards appeared instantly. Get her away from my son. Grace's heart shattered. Sir, please listen to me. I didn't hurt him. I helped him. Look. She held out her palm, showing him the blockage. This was inside his ear. This is why he couldn't hear. I removed it. You're not a doctor, Marcus roared. You could have killed him. The guards grabbed Grace's arms. Ethan screamed, actually screamed, no, don't take her. The sound of his son's voice, loud, desperate, real, stopped Marcus cold, but the fear was too strong. Take her to the security office, call the police. Grace did not resist. As they dragged her away, she looked back at Ethan. It's okay, she mouthed. You're going to be okay. Ethan sobbed, loud, messy sobs, the first sounds of grief he had ever made. At the hospital in New York, doctors swarmed around Ethan, tests, scans, examinations. Marcus paced the hallway, his mind spinning. His son was speaking, hearing, responding to sounds. It was impossible. A nurse approached him. Mr. Wellington, Dr. Richardson needs to speak with you urgently. Marcus followed her into a small office. Dr. Richardson sat behind the desk, his face grim. Mr. Wellington, I don't know how to say this. Just say it. The doctor slid a folder across the desk. This is your son's scan from 3 years ago. Marcus opened it. There, circled in red, was a notation. Dense obstruction noted in right ear canal. Recommend immediate removal. Marcus's blood turned to ice. Someone saw this. Dr. Richardson nodded slowly. It appears so, but there's no follow-up, no procedure scheduled. Your account was flagged for ongoing treatment protocol. The words hit Marcus like a bullet. Ongoing treatment protocol. They had known, they had seen the blockage, and they had left it there, because his money was too good, because his desperation was profitable. They kept my son deaf, Marcus whispered, on purpose. Doctor. Richardson said nothing, but his silence said everything. Marcus's hands trembled. All those years, all those millions, all those specialists shaking their heads, saying there was nothing they could do. They had lied. And the one person who told the truth, who had actually helped, was sitting in his security office, waiting to be arrested. Marcus stood. Where are you going? The doctor asked. Marcus did not answer. He had a maid to find, and a lifetime of apologies to make. Grace sat alone in the security office, hands folded, head bowed. She was not praying for herself. She was praying for Ethan, that his hearing would hold, that his father would understand, that the boy would finally know what it felt like to live in a world full of sound. The door opened. She looked up. Marcus Wellington stood there, but he was not the same man who had dragged her away an hour ago. His eyes were red. His face was broken. He looked like a man who had just watched his whole world crumble and rebuild in the same breath. Grace. Her name was spoken softly, almost reverently. She stood. Mr. Wellington, I can explain. Don't, he walked toward her slowly. Don't explain, don't apologize, don't say a word. He stopped in front of her. And this billionaire, this man who controlled empires, fell to his knees. I'm sorry, he whispered. I'm so sorry. Grace's breath caught. The doctors knew, Marcus said, his voice cracking. They saw the blockage years ago. They left it there because my money was too good to cure. Tears streamed down his face. I trusted them. I trusted credentials and degrees and expensive hospitals. I threw millions at my son's problem and never once stopped to actually look at him. He looked up at her. But you did. You saw him. You saw his pain. You paid attention when nobody else bothered. Grace's own tears fell. I just loved him, sir, that's all. Marcus shook his head. No, that's everything. He stood slowly. I've spent 8 years trying to buy a miracle, and God sent one through the woman I hired to clean my floors. Grace wiped her eyes. God uses the willing, Mr. Wellington. That's what my grandmother always said. Marcus nodded. She was right. They walked back to Ethan's hospital room together. The boy sat on the bed, headphones on, listening to music for the first time. His face was pure wonder. When he saw them, he pulled off the headphones and ran straight to Grace. He wrapped his arms around her waist. Thank you, he said. His voice was rough, unpracticed, beautiful. Grace knelt down and held him tight. You were always worth hearing, baby, always. Ethan pulled back and looked at his father. Dad, I can hear your heart. It's beating fast. Marcus dropped to his knees and pulled his son close. For the first time in 8 years, Ethan heard his father cry. And Grace, standing quietly beside them, finally let herself breathe. God had answered her prayer, not with money, not with medicine, but with willing hands and a faithful heart. Sometimes that's all a miracle needs. 6 months later, Marcus Wellington stood in the garden of his Connecticut estate. The silence that once filled these halls was gone. Now there was laughter, music, the sound of his son's voice calling to him from the house. Dad, come see what I learned. Marcus smiled. He would never take that sound for granted. Never. He had settled Grace's grandmother's nursing home bills in full. For life. He had also set up a fund in Grace's name to help families who couldn't afford medical care for their children. Grace still worked at the mansion, but not as a maid, as Ethan's companion, his friend, the person who saved his life. And every night, before Ethan went to bed, he would find Grace and sign one thing: safe. Because of her, he finally was. What you just saw is only a piece of the bigger story. In the next video, a twist no one saw coming will be revealed. Make sure you're here for it. I'd love to hear what you would have done in this situation. Drop your thoughts below. I read every single comment. Thanks so much for watching. Show some love by liking, subscribing, and sharing this with someone who needs to see it.